Shallowing your downswing. Now we all know that's where the magic happens. But Phil Mickelson, he tends to get quite steep on it. And he's not done too bad for himself. Now generally, flattening the shaft angle in the early stages of your downswing drastically improves strike, club lean through impact, body rotation, and completely changes your angle of attack, giving you better control of your downswing path. Now this video is not for the guy that drops it on the inside here and gets stuck. Oh no. This lesson is for you, the golfer that throws it over and out from the top. Now just before we shallow your downswing off, and just before we jump in, the number one reason that golfers, amateur golfers, come over the top, they get too steep on it, they come from outside to in, or whatever you want to call it, it's because they're aiming too far to the right and they're swinging back left to react to get back to the target, because they've got a stance and alignment problem. I'm just saying. I mean, from time to time, even top players struggle with stance and alignment problems.
I was aiming right and swinging right to basically try and counter that. So if I hit something 20 yards right, it would actually be a straight shot, and I didn't know that in myself. So we had to do a lot of work on setup.
Now it's always nice to talk about flash things like, shallowing your downswing off. Now I've covered it before in other videos, so I'm not going to bang on about it here. But do yourself a favour and check your alignment in relation to the target. And if you're standing too far to the right, then you're never going to shallow off that downswing of yours. Oh. Now for the average golfer that gets steep on it, to shallow out the downswing is extremely difficult to do, because there's one thing that nobody talks about. Standing in your way, and that's tension. Now elite golfers, who for some reason are the benchmark for amateur golfers, because you obviously want to learn from the best, but they spent a lifetime training their hands, which is the skill in itself. That's why elite players dial in their distances being more body-centric, whereby the body controls the hands and arms and quietens them down. Distance and speed actually comes from the hands and arms. Yes, I'm not saying that you don't get a bit more when you throw your body in, but elite players tend to get the odd iron or wedge that flies too far, and that's why they tend to practice body-centric drills on the range. Now look, between me and you, what I'm trying to say is that they've already spent years training their hands. And you probably haven't. And that's why many swing and practice drills used by elite players don't work for the average golfer. Now arching or bowing your left wrist as you start down will shallow your downswing off, but you've got to be made for that one. I've not met many club golfers that can pull that one off. Now bowing your left wrist on the way down shallows the club shaft angle, but I tell you, forcing this movement into your downswing can cause serious wrist injuries. Unless, of course, this is the way your body works. The bells, the bells. I think somebody must be getting married today. Good luck with that one. No, they'll be fine, they'll be fine, they'll be fine. Now I don't want to get too technical here, but I want you to understand how the forces that are put on the wrist in the downswing have an effect on shaft angles as your club head reacts to them in your downswing. Now if my hands are soft and responsive to the weight of the club head, and I move them out towards the ball in the downswing, then you'll see the club head kicks back and is pushed behind my body, which shallows the downswing. The opposite happens if my hands move in towards my body as I start down and throws the club shaft out into a steep position. This is something that helps many of my pupils to play around with and naturally bows the left wrist in the downswing as you move the hands away or direct the butt of the club out towards the ball. Another good drill to give you a feeling of how the hands and body work together to shallow out your downswing and how an elite player would do this is to split your grip with your right hand down the shaft. Now, as you will see with elite players, they tend to flex down and turn more into the left hip and knee as they begin their downswing, which actually steepens their wrist angle. Now, as I mentioned earlier, elite golfers have trained their hand and arm rotation for years, so they offset the steepness with their trail arm and hand to shallow things off. Now, it's a great drill, but for the average golfer who gets steep on the way down, then you're really going to struggle with it. And you'll certainly have to invest a lot of time and energy to integrate this into your swing. I mean, if it works at all. Now, often a golfer will be advised to start the downswing with the lower body, sliding the hips across to the left, making room to drop the arms down, but they get stuck on the inside through impact as this blocks the rotation. Now you'll tend to hit too far behind the ball and will start to push or hook it, which I suppose is the opposite to the slice you rocked up with. Now, another one I see a lot is the golfer that tries to correct this outside steep initiation of the downswing by looping the hands and arms back behind them. But what actually happens is that this creates a steeper club shaft, making the problem worse. You don't know what you're thinking. Right then, Lee. So how does the average amateur club golfer shallow their downswing? Now, you've got to keep it simple and use soft hands and let the weight of the club head drop down. Sergio Garcia is an exaggerated example. Yes, I know, it's Sergio Garcia, it's not you, it's not me, it's Sergio Garcia. But as he gets to the top of his backswing, you'll see his hands soften. This is what I was talking about earlier. He's trained his hands from hitting thousands of balls, and yes, as his body weight transfers to his left side, his swing path, hands, wrists and arms react to the movement and force is put on them, shallowing the shaft angle. Yes, and I know we're talking Masters champion here, but what can you take away from this? Now, I'm telling you now, the first thing is tension. It's bad. Any tension at the top of the backswing, or you grab or snatch, you'll hold onto the angle and you'll come over the top and steep again. And that's why all these shallowing off your downswing drills have never worked in the past. They've never been successful because soft hands are crucial to feel the shallowing effect. Now, a good way to isolate these feelings is to take your backswing to the top, hold your left forearm and let your wrist and hand fall down behind you. Feel the weight of the club head fall. Once you get the feel for this, smoothly transfer your body weight onto your left foot and rotate to the finish. Something I encourage pupils to do is to combine a backswing drill that I covered in my last video and let the club head drop behind and rotate through to the finish. You could use two clubs. The weight will help you to feel the club head drop down behind you. That's why when young children start to play, they can get very shallow due to not being able to control the weight. And that's another reason why most elite players tend not to struggle with shallowing off their downswings. They started young. Oh! What are you doing up here? Hey? You surprised yourself then, mate, didn't you? Good lad, that's it. Now, if you're a visual kind of golfer and need a prop, then if you push an alignment stick into the ground on the angle of your club shaft, 5 or 6 inches away from your hands and club shaft. Now, good players tend to swing back on this plane and match up on the downswing or come down slightly shallower. Now, having a stick there helps you to get the feeling that the club head is working underneath the shaft. You know, and all these, watch this video and in 5 minutes you'll be ripping it like Sergio. An absolute, total, utter. Hey, and don't get me wrong here, I am not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't do it for 1 minute. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's just going to need a little bit of practice. Then you can gradually start to introduce the feelings into your full swing. Nice and easy, take your time with about 40% of your power and gradually move through the gears until you reach full speed. So there you go, that's the secret to shallowing off your downswing. Soft hands, feel the weight of the club head drop and rotate to the finish. And say goodbye to that slice of yours.
I can feel it somewhere inside, haunting like a drug I keep on wanting. There's a love that fits so perfect, it's hard to believe.